Ever find yourself staring off into space or drifting off in thought mid conversation? I promise you are not alone. Inattention is so common amongst ADHDers, it gets its own type. This creates all sorts of challenges, and I think it's time we talk about it. So, let's get started. ADHD is broken into three diagnostic types. There's hyperactivity, which is the little boys running around bouncing off the walls. Although that's a stereotype, they can cause all sorts of problems. There's the combined type, where you get a little bit of hyperactivity and a little bit of inattention. This is the most common, and I'll get into the reason for that in a little bit. And then there's inattentive, characterized by what most people would simply call laziness, except that it's lifelong and debilitating. The reason why ADHD combined type is most common is because our symptoms can shift and change throughout our lifetimes. These types are nothing more than a label and really only indicate which symptoms are most prevalent when you get diagnosed. For instance, hyperactivity gets diagnosed when you're bouncing off the walls, but inattention could easily be described as hyperactivity within the mind. It appears as daydreaming or zoning out. All ADHDers need activity and stimulation. It's just a matter of whether this happens externally or internally. But do you know what happens when you take a hyperactive ADHDer and you force them to sit still? They daydream and they zone out. And if you take an inattentive ADHDer and you up their physical activity by a lot, 2+ hours a day, then they're going to find an increased ability to focus. Go figure. If you're dealing with inattention on a regular basis, the important thing to remember is that it is absolutely not laziness. It really just means that you have too many tabs open in your mind, the way a computer starts slowing down when it has too many tabs open on the internet. The cons of this pretty much just read as a list of ADHD symptoms: disorganization, time blindness, and inability to focus, distractibility. These are all caused by an inattentive brain. But let's break down each one of those cons individually. Disorganization is often seen as a completely different trait than inattention, but really it stems from the same thing. The reason why it's so hard to stay organized is because in order to stay organized, you need to pay attention. A lot. Even if you do manage to keep a calendar, you still need to make sure that you're putting in your appointments in the right boxes, that you're checking it and double checking it to make sure that you don't forget any details. Today, I actually missed my dentist appointment because I thought it was at 11:50 and it was at 11. A tiny detail in my calendar that I missed purely because of inattention. You have so many thoughts going on in your brain, it's hard to set them aside and pay attention to the thing that's right in front of you that's most important. It's the same with time blindness. In order to keep track of time, you need to pay attention to it passing. And you have to do it while concentrating on whatever task that you are doing to pass the time. I've actually made a pros and cons video for time blindness itself, so when this video is over, check that one out. But for now, let's move on to the inattention of it all. Not being able to pay attention when there's something distracting happening is completely normal. But for an ADHDer, we are the distraction. It's hard to read even just a page when every third word is creating this completely unrelated bonus content in your mind. But it's a misconception that we are not paying attention. And I'm not even talking about hyperfocus right now. I'll get to that a little later. Right now, I'm talking about the fact that we are paying attention to everything. That's the problem. Neurotypicals will get upset with us and say that we're not paying attention, but really what they mean is that we're not focusing our attention on them. What we're actually doing is taking in the entire room. You're noticing the 3 other conversations going on in that same room. You're noticing the body language that each one of those people is giving off. You've clocked the color of the curtains and the hum of the air conditioner. You're paying attention to all of it. And yeah, it's exhausting. What people really mean when they say that ADHDers can't pay attention is that we're easily distracted, which is not the same thing, but it can be just as problematic. ADHDers struggle to prioritize and remember things. You know this is true if you've ever left a trail of unfinished projects in your wake. You decide to do a load of laundry, but all the dirty clothes are on the floor, so you start picking them up and putting them in the basket. And then you realize how dirty your floors are, so you decide to go get the vacuum. But when you get to the vacuum, you realize how messy your closet is. So you take out the vacuum and start sorting through the contents of the closet. And all of a sudden, it's the end of the day. The laundry hasn't been started. The floors aren't clean. And the closet is strewn everywhere. You haven't done anything productive, yet you're absolutely exhausted and you're completely overwhelmed by your own inability to focus on a single task. Relatable? Tell me your story in the comments so we can all feel a little less alone in this, please. And now let's shift our attention to the pros, because living like this can be extremely disheartening and we need to know the good stuff. To start with, all roads lead back to creativity, our superpower. Daydreaming, seeing connections that others do not see, and having a wide open mind allows us to be idea-generating machines. And that is a really good thing. Secondly, these connections are caused by our ability to scan the room. We can see the big picture, which means that we often know things that we shouldn't know. This can work in arbitrary ways, like when I knew that Bruce Willis was dead in the first 5 minutes of The Sixth Sense, or it could happen in really significant ways. The way I knew that the vibe in the bar had shifted just before the brawl broke out. These are true stories, by the way. It's our inattention that actually makes our instincts so spot on. Next is hyperfocus. As much as we struggle to focus our attention in some situations, we can also focus intensely if the dopamine hits just right. We scan rooms looking for excitement, novelty, and risk. Give us one of those things with a chaser of joy, and we can hyperfocus for hours without so much as looking up. Hyperfocus can be our greatest asset if we can just learn how to turn it off and on. And this is entirely possible if you know how. So let's get into some tips and tricks. Tip number 1 is time blocking with timers. Setting random alarms periodically through the day can help snap you back into focus when you've drifted off, to help you think about whether you're supposed to be doing what you're actually doing or some other task you've completely forgotten about. It's like a little nudge asking, did you get distracted? Tip number 2 is body doubling. ADHDers really benefit from having some accountability, but we really struggle with demand avoidance. Having somebody check in on you to see if you're staying on task can be really, really dysregulating. But having someone else in the room just doing their own thing doesn't seem to have the same effect. Some of us do really well simply working in a public environment like the library or a cafe, while others prefer to do it online. There are plenty of apps now that will allow you to body double with a room full of people on Zoom. And this can afford you just enough accountability to keep you on task. Tip number 3 is to make it fun. ADHDers can only thrive in positive emotion. If you're bored, annoyed, lonely, sad, or angry with yourself, then you're not going to be very productive. It is impossible for us to innately focus on something that is simply not fun. We have to create fun within those things, even if it's things like taxes. So if you need to focus on something that's not fun, Find a way to add some fun. And remember, to your brain, anything that is new, exciting, challenging, or interesting is considered fun. So do your taxes with a friend. Play your favorite songs while you're cleaning your house. Use your imagination. It's a powerful tool for problem solving. And most importantly, give yourself grace. You have a unique perspective and you need to embrace that. Thanks for watching. This is part 3 of an ongoing series on the pros and cons of ADHD traits. Hit that subscribe button if you don't want to miss out on further videos, and I'll see you next week. Bye.